Hey everyone, Peter here from Optimise Health. It was so great coming to the Southern last night and being part of the first pub run for road runners. And in the future, when they have more events like this, we highly recommend that you come and join in. Myself and Emily got to present last night on the topic of why you need to keep running and what you accomplish with your running and celebrating that, because a lot of the time we find that people just want to break PBs, they want to run when they're injured, and we just wanted to remind people why it's such a good privilege to be able to run and just enjoy that, and also just the mental side of the things that you accomplish by doing it. There was a lot of noise last night, so I just said to Wendy, I'll record the presentation and put it up for a week or two on the Roadrunners Facebook page, and if you weren't there, you can review it. And I hope that you enjoy it. If you have any questions, you can always touch base with us. So one of the main reasons that we run is that it keeps you healthy and fit. It's great for your mental health. It brings a sense of community. Like last night was amazing, heading out as a group and then eating some food together. It just creates motivation to why we do what we do. It makes you feel good. It's just something that you've always done. For a few people last night, it was their first run in a group ever, which was pretty exciting. And for most of us, there's somebody else that makes you do it. And like we said, Wendy has a little black book of people that she chases up, but just such an inspiration as well. And we've got the beautiful John Howe here in this photo showing us how to finish parkrun last year. Just a massive inspiration for me with John and watching him with his running journey over the last 5 years that I've known him, and just continuing to want to run and getting out there on Tuesdays and in the weekends and doing it. So why should you keep running? Strenuous exercise helps you adapt for more challenging life experiences. It helps you build a better way to challenge yourself during times when you're sick and you're trying to recover. And the way that that's done is that by doing strenuous exercise and getting short of breath and challenging your body, when you are challenged by a disease or a sickness, your body can tolerate that stress a lot better because you've conditioned it for it, which is great. So like Wendy doing Gone Nuts here with Chris, spending 8 hours doing a really long walk, and actually a lot longer than that, just helps you understand how your body works and what is its parameters, which is great because it means that you kind of learn how you can recover when you get sick. And a lot of the time people actually challenge themselves a lot harder on a really complicated run than being sick at home. And that's why it's also important that when you're getting symptoms of feeling sick, that you do need a rest and let your body have the energy to recover. The other thing that also helps is if you've got situations at work that are stressful, they found that exercise, not just running, just exercise in general, helps you cope with stress at work and also how you communicate in stressful times, which is great. So I can't encourage you more to just remember that when you get out to run, it actually helps you manage stressful situations in your life. So running helps you regulate some of the neurotransmitters known as monoamines, and some of these are serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. And what exercise, not just running, does is that it helps with these three hormones pretty much. And so serotonin is the hormone that helps you with your mood and your sleep. It helps you recover for your next run, and then it also helps you sleep better that night. So literally it is important to exercise because what you're doing is that you're clearing your mind, and you're tired when you go to sleep physically and mentally, which is great. So we know with a lot of people that sit and work behind a desk, they get something that we call central fatigue, which is where you're tired in your head, but your body's not very tired. And so a lot of the time you're quite restless when you go to bed if you haven't trained for that day. So what serotonin does is that when you fatigue yourself with exercise, you also get that physical peripheral fatigue. So then you sleep much better. So even if it's a recovery day, whether you go out for a walk or just something to clear your head, it's important to remember that you sleep a lot better when you've run and when you've done your exercise. Motivation, so that's your dopamine hormone. It's a red hot topic and everything from social media to exercise at the moment. So what running and exercise does is it gives you a really natural hit of that, and that's that runner's high that you get. that helps you kick those goals, and especially with other things that you're trying to accomplish in your life. If you're trying to live a healthier lifestyle, or you're trying to create a habit of even just reading or doing something, by making a habit of running and hitting those dopamine goals, you'll see that you actually stick to other habits a lot better as well, which we're going to talk a bit more in the next slide. Managing stress, so that's your noradrenaline. So running your stress away, it's literally something that helps you clear your mind. And like I said in the previous slide, it helps you actually handle stressful situations a lot better when you stress your body out in a healthy way. And by exercising, not just stressing it out by sitting at home thinking about the 100 things that you've got to do. Sometimes it's just much better to put your shoes on, go for a run, clear your head, and then come back. And then a lot of the time you actually realize, that's actually not as bad as what it was. So what running does, it just helps you clear a lot of that brain fog that you might have around a certain situation and deciding what you need to do. So these are actually 3 things that happen when you're running. You're not just thinking it. It is actually something that improves. And if you want to read more about that, that's actually from a book called Death by Comfort by Paul Taylor, who's an exercise physiologist. For everyone that's athletes and exercising, I definitely recommend that you have a look at that. To form a habit takes 18 to 254 days, and for that habit to become something automatic, it takes 66 days. And so it's really important that when people come and join Roadrunners, that you respect where they're at the beginning of their running journey. They're not somebody that's run for years, or they're just coming back. It means that their tissue in their body is going to have to condition. And for that conditioning, it takes at least 66 days. So sometimes they're not going to be able to do a 9 or 11K run. So you're going to have to explain to them, hey, this is a 5K loop, do that, and we'll meet you back here. We'll be back at this time. And make sure that they do the easier runs, and you'll see that progressively they'll get better. It's really important that in that first 3 weeks that they don't overload their tissue too much. So running every day is going to break them. And so it's really important to encourage them to probably run every second day. And do a bit of cross training that we can talk a little bit later as well. As I said before, by hitting that 66-day mark, that habit becomes automatic, and then you really start seeing your times improve, or your heart rate gets better, even though your time doesn't improve, so your fitness gets better. And those dopamine hits, all of a sudden they start coming more often, and you're like, cool, I really enjoy running. I want to get out. I want to go to the gym. I want to go swimming. I want to go socialize with my friends. And that's where we really see the changes in people with depression and anxiety based stuff, which is actually a really big correlation between exercise that helps your mental health. So if you've got people that are struggling socially, it's really good to invite them to come and join in a Toowoomba Roadrunners environment. Just make sure you choose your run, whether it's a Tuesday session where we all stick together on the field, or whether it's an easier morning session on a Wednesday. But walk with them and make sure that they've got their companionship there. And then you'll see that by helping them hit those goals, it will help them change other things in their lifestyle as well. So what is VO2 max? So this slide here is from Garmin. It's kind of how they calculate VO2 max, which is just done by how hard your heart's working and also what pace you're running at. So it's not 100% accurate, because with VO2 max you actually wear a mask that can measure how much oxygen you get, but it is reasonably accurate, and it's good enough to show you the changes that you need to see. The way that I explained it last night is that when you set out and you start to run, or if you've been injured and you haven't run or done any exercise for a while, the things in your body that carries oxygen around are like little V-dub beetles. You can't fit much oxygen in there, so it doesn't take much for you to run. And if you get your heart rate up, you get lactate and jelly legs, and you're just absolutely cooked really quickly. So the aim with it is, remember that it takes time for you to build up your VO2 max and your muscle endurance and how your bone loads. So if you do too much too quickly, you're going to burn out. But as you then start running better, all of a sudden your muscle starts absorbing oxygen a lot better, and those little V-dub beetles become a lot more like a turbo Hilux that can carry a lot more oxygen to the muscle, so you're a lot more economical at getting around, which is really, really good. And then it takes a lot longer for your lactate to burn, to build up in your muscles. And also you'll be running, let's say you're running your 5K in 20 minutes, all of a sudden instead of your heart rate being at 180 because you're running that fast, it's at 160. So you can run for longer periods with a lower heart rate, because your muscle is absorbing oxygen a lot easier, and there's a lot more transportation with that Hilux versus that V-dub. So it's important to make sure you get your rest days, and you also understand that it's okay to be short of breath. And it's really important to realize it takes 20 minutes for your body to work out that you're exercising. So when people are starting out, if you just get them to chuck their shoes on and run, they're going to just destroy themselves in the first 10 minutes because their heart hasn't changed yet, their blood vessels hasn't changed yet. So it's important to walk for 5 to 15 minutes when people are setting out. Do a little bit of jogging, get your heart warmed up, get your blood vessels in your legs to understand that you're going to run, and you'll see that you run a lot better once your body kind of has an understanding for 20 minutes what it's going to be doing, which is great. So this is just a little slide about VO2 max and the different colors which you'll see on your Garmin and on your watch. Somebody commented that it only goes up to 64, because if you're running after 64, you're excellent in everything you do regardless. So really proud of you guys, and definitely inspiration for me. And then I've just put a little slide here about one of the biggest studies that they've done. Yeah, there's shortcomings in it, but it's pretty good. So this was done from 2000 and 2021 is when they came out with the results of it, and it started in 1993. Sorry, it's just behind my face there. But they involved 16,000 women over the age of 60, and they measured how many steps they took until 2021. And what they found is that people that took steps over 4,500 steps per day had a massive increase in their lifespan, and also how good their quality of life is. And then for every 1,000 steps that you took over 4,500, you reduced the increase of, reduced the mortality rate by 28%, which is like, it's just massive. So I really want to encourage people that you don't need to run PBs and run every day sometimes. Like if you are taking 4,500 steps, which most people are pretty much doing in their runs, you should be celebrating that you are making your future self so much healthier. So just remember that you're doing amazing when you go out for your run. Run to be injury free, not to be injured. And if you need a rest day or cross training day, take that day. Like, don't push your body to the limit. And the reason for that is in this slide here. So pretty much this just shows us sometimes our dopamine and our endorphins and stuff can get a bit high with our exercise. So this is what happens if you get injured, and I got this from a website with Coach Jeff. It was great. He did all the research, so if you want to look up a little bit of his work, it's good as well. But pretty much what he calculated is if you don't run for 1 to 7 days, you have a negligible reduction in your VO2 max and power. So you only run 10 seconds slower if you don't train for a week. Okay, so it's great if you need a deloading week or you're not running because you've got some niggles, you're only going to lose 10 seconds over that 5K. If you can't run for 10 to 14 days, then you start seeing a 6% reduction in your VO2 max, so that hilux is slowly shrinking a little bit, and you lose a minute and 5 seconds on your 5K. And now, like if we think about a calf tear or a hamstring injury and you can't run for 14 to 30 days, you lose 12% in your VO2 max, and you really start seeing a change in your muscle and your power. And now you're running 3 minutes slower on your 5K. And then 30 to 63 days, that's a 19% loss. Pretty big significant loss in their VO2 max and your muscle and power, and now running 24 minutes. And then 63 plus days, obviously a lot more of an issue there. So it's really important, like we talk about it here at the clinic, that it's much better taking a couple of days early to recover from an injury, so you only lose kind of 10 seconds, versus running through an injury that's actually really bad, and it's going to mean you're going to have 10 to 14 days off. So don't train to get injured. Make sure that you look after yourself. It's really important that you look at training on different surfaces, whether it's grass and concrete, just because you don't get quite as much rebound through the concrete through your bones, which is great. So it's a lot easier to run on grass. So just make sure that you vary that up again. And that's why we love Tuesday runnings, because running on the grass, it makes it a bit harder. So you run actually a lot faster on the concrete because you just cruise a little bit more, but you don't get as many issues. So the other thing to remember as well is if you've trained for a really long time, like you've been running for years, these values are actually a lot less. You lose things a lot slower. And if you're somebody that's only run for the first little bit and now you've got injured, you actually lose your VO2 max in that time a lot quicker. So there is a benefit to running for a long time. When you get injured, you don't lose so many issues. The other thing as well in this slide, which I've just skipped, is that it's really important to remember one of the main reasons we see people is changing shoes for no reason. So we really try to encourage people to not just change shoes for the sake of it. Change shoes if you're getting injuries in your current shoes, but otherwise stick with what you know and stay in the right shoes. So one of the things that we talk about is cross-training. So the golden rule for training, regardless of what you're doing, is to not increase your volume by more than 5% per week. So running alone doesn't give you the strength to keep in good shape, especially when you increase your running more than 5 kilometers. So generally when people run only 5 kilometers, they're not likely to get injured so much, because if you run 5,000 meters at a cadence of 170, you are taking about 3,400 steps. So what we find is that for your most everyday kind of people that run 5K 2 or 3 times a week, you're pretty likely not to get injured. But when you increase that running and you're doing 10,000 steps, 10,000 meters, you're taking 7,600 steps. Now, if you've got an asymmetry, that's when we start seeing issues. So it's really important that when you're setting out to increase your running distance, that sometimes it's good to run your 5K and then get home and sit on a stationary bike for an extra 20 or 30 minutes. So you increase your cardio and your strength in your legs. But it is really important to measure your volume and make sure that you're not increasing that volume too quickly every week. Between that and incorrect shoes is pretty much why you'll see me and Em probably the most usually. So what's an asymmetry? So pretty much in this slide, what you can see here on the left is my first run back after I had surgery on my veins last year. So you'll see this little black dot in here. That is your center of mass. So my center of mass is shifted onto my right side, which is why I was getting right Achilles pain. And also my heel strike there wasn't as far back as on the left foot. So generally we actually want people's feet to work like this right foot, because we don't want people to heel strike because that increases the load coming back into your body. So we try to get people midfoot striking, and then on the left foot here you can see that I'm heel striking, so I'm probably over striding. But the key thing here is that my cadence is probably sitting at 156 from memory, which is just really slow. So we want people's cadence to be up at that mark of 170, 165 upwards. And so what we did is this one on the right here, we put a metronome on, and that metronome was at 165. So still running the same pace, but just with more steps per minute. And now you can see that black dot right in the middle there. My symmetry is a lot better. I'm running probably a lot more on my toes, so I could probably midfoot strike a little bit more here. But it just shows you the difference. So when people come and see us, we have a look at what shoes you're wearing, what your cadence is. We look for this asymmetry, because you can imagine on this left slide here, if I'm taking 7,600 steps, or I'm running more than 50 to 60 Ks a week, I'm going to get some issues in my hips and my knees because my center of mass is not going too well. Now, this is a great slide to also explain about supportive shoes versus neutral shoes. So it's really hard to explain to people that running shoes these days are becoming very running specific, which makes it hard because you can't just wear your runners to the shop anymore and do gardening in them and expect them to last 800 Ks. So a lot of shoes have become really soft and they're just made running specific. So obviously on the slide here on the left, I was a lot better running in the Asics 2000s because I'm a heavy heel striker. My shoe crushes inwards. Just having that support so the shoe compresses more evenly is great. And the slide on the right here, I mean, if I run like that all the time, I could run in a neutral shoe, whether it's an On or a Hoka or an Asics shoe, because my heels aren't contacting the ground so much. But a lot of the time for your just everyday runners, you'll find that it's a lot better to be in a slightly supportive shoe unless you're a really neutral runner, because what it means is that when you wear that shoe for other things as well, it doesn't compress quite as quickly. And if you're a runner that's really committed to running and you're in your neutral shoes, you're going to be fine with that. Just remember that those shoes don't last quite as long. So make sure that wherever you go, that you try shoes out, and just remember that your softer shoes, they're only going to last somewhere between 300 or 500 Ks now, where originally shoes would last 500 to 800 Ks. So we've seen a big change in that as well. So this video here will show you kind of in that first slide. So you'll see that my hips rock a fair bit, and that's because while I had surgery, I had about 3 months off running and exercise. So I lost a lot of strength through my glutes and through my lower back. And you can see how my foot comes across midline here as well. So I'm kind of tandem running a little bit as well. And that increases a lot of the load through my shin splint muscles as well, okay? So that's why we really encourage people to look at cross training, because with your cross training, you've got to strengthen your glutes, strengthen your quads, look at your calves, strengthen your core, and you don't really get that so much through running. So that's why, especially here at the clinic, we do Pilates. We've got Lauren that does swim lessons. We talk about deep water running, cycling, using a stationary bike, doing gym classes, and this varies for different people, a lot like this photo here, that we do things differently. So one of the questions was last night, how often should you do strength work? We try to encourage people to do 1 to 2 strength classes a week if they can, whether that's at home or at a gym. But the thing is, if you are starting out and you're weak, we encourage a lot more to get you strong enough to then have a strong stride and gait for running long distances. And if you're somebody that's already done that, then you might only do 1 session a week to maintain that. So for your runners that pretty much just starts out, it's really good to do a lot of strength stuff to help you, so that you can get through that 30 to 40 Ks per week. Because once you get past 30 to 40 Ks, if you have an asymmetry, you're more likely to get injured. Okay. So that leads me to knowing where you're going. So, like if you don't have a location and a GPS, you can get lost pretty quickly. So it's really important to measure what you're doing every week, whether it's time, heart rate, distance. It's going to help you stay injury free, and then you can set goals about what you're trying to accomplish, so that you don't just chuck your shoes on, which is again probably the third reason why we see a lot of people is that they just chuck their shoes on. They usually their longest run's been like 5K, and they go for a 15K run, and all of a sudden then they run the next day and they just build up inflammation, and we see injuries 4 to 6 weeks after those big sessions that your body's not conditioned for. So make sure that you have a plan and that you measure it. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a coach, but just measure your distance that you're running or the time that you're training for in a week. So again, you work in that golden principle of about 5%. And if you've done your load and you're running for the week, then go, cool, I'm going to jump on the bike or do the pull, which is a lot more lower impact, and you can get that extra mileage that you want while you keep building up your running by 5%. Yes, we know people are sick of hearing this, but it is so important that you need a massage and stretch. Well, massage especially every second night. So most people need a foam roll or use a massage gun every second or third night. It's a non-negotiable. If you want to run a lot, you need to make sure you're massaging out your calves, your quads, and your glutes, 3 minutes each, and you need to do that every second night. Stretching. This is where we love getting people in. So we do a lot of servicing. So once people are fixed from their injury, or if people come and see us, we do what you kind of do a car service. So people come and see us 2 or 3 times a year. We run through your stretches for your running. What is the movement you need to run to take away your asymmetries? And we review massaging. So if you've never done that, make sure you come and book in with me, Em or Lauren, and we'll run you through a daily stretching program and massage program and stuff like that to help you stay injury free so that you don't lose the fitness that you have. Look at your recovery sessions, value your rest days, like actually rest, like go for a little walk or something like that. But like I'm pretty bad for it. I go swimming on my rest days, which I shouldn't, because having that rest day lets your heart calm down, and it lets you break that next VO2 max kind of level and helps you with your fitness. And cross train. We really encourage people to cross train while they're fit and healthy, because when you get injured, it's like, oh, I don't even know what to do. Like it makes it really hard. So if you're fit and healthy and you cross train once or twice a week, if you get injured, then you can sit on the bike if you've got a little calf strain or something, and you can keep your VO2 max. So you don't lose it quite as much while the calf strain improves over 2 to 3 weeks. So just know you get a lot of value at doing that cross training based stuff. This is my favourite little runner here on a Tuesday morning. This is Henry. I love the way that Henry and his mum Laura runs and does sessions. If they don't feel it, then Henry just doesn't run. And if he feels good, he's going to run, and he runs well. And sometimes that's what we got to do when we listen to our body. Is you can't run PBs all the time. You can't always be on the edge of breaking your limits and stuff. But at least by getting out and exercising, hopefully from this presentation, you realise that you are doing something good for yourself, so you're going to live at home longer. You're going to have less risk of dying young with complications of comorbidities with mental health and also heart disease. So just remember, don't overdo it. Set your goals, plan your weekly runs. If you need to, chuck your shoes on and go for a run, but just make sure you don't do something crazy that you don't usually do. Try and incorporate cross-training activity 1 to 2 times per week. Prioritize your rest. And lastly, make sure that you make a quick decision with injuries. So if you've got an injury and it's sharp pain and you're struggling and it's been there for 4 or 5 days and you haven't been resting, you need a rest to see if it settles down. If it's been there for more than 4 to 5 days and it's not getting better, it's better to see your physio or your podiatrist or whoever you're getting treated early on, because you can see that if we can treat it early on and get you cross training, you're not going to lose much of your fitness, which is great. So don't leave it 6 weeks and then you need to have 3 or 4 weeks off. The other thing is that we really appreciate everybody in Toowoomba. There's some great physios around, like Aaron Salisbury, Wim de Hoff. You got Better Movement Clinic, Up and Active, Hip Sports and Spine. We know there's a lot of people around. We really value people seeing other people. We don't fix everyone. So don't feel like you can't talk to us about something because you see somebody else, or if you've seen us and gone somewhere else, we don't mind. There's enough people in Toowoomba to keep everyone busy. Our biggest goal is to help people realise their potential and improve their fitness and their health. So I hope that this helps you. From me and Em and Kathy from Maddie McDonald and our Tuesday morning sessions. We love working with you guys. We look forward to seeing you again, and thanks for having us part of the Toowoomba Roadrunners family. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me or Em, or chat to Wendy or E-Man, and they can let us know and we can go from there. Have a great day.